Okay, on this video today we're going to talk about Google ad account bans. And basically, if you're in the position right now that your account was shut down, you try contacting Google. Google just basically, what I call, send you to phone support hell. You can't get through to anybody. You try to go through the chat support, email support. It just sends you through chat or email only, no chat. You email them, you get an automated reply back. This video is for you, or at least I'm going to provide enough information for you on this video out of what I know what causes it, so possibly you can fix whatever that you did that you didn't realize you did to fix the issue itself. Part of the problem with getting these kind of bans, first of all, is because they have automated systems, and their systems are becoming more automated all the time to where it's not a human but a computer deciding if you got kicked off. So a lot of times you can trigger something that you may have not actually did anything wrong or what they would consider wrong, but then it happens to you basically. And then most of the other times though, it's stuff that they don't like. It's not necessarily a false positive, at least for this. And so I'm going to go over what those things are so you can decide what you can do. For the most part, there's always a way to work around it. So you should realize that going in, and that's the good news out about all this. So basically, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to go over the main things that I have basically seen, first of all, that causes the issue. Then I'll get into stuff that you can do to work around it. So first of all, there's blacklisted topics that if you touch them, your account turns to dust. And I've learned what a lot of them are myself. I don't have a comprehensive list, but Google actually does provide a list of topics that you can't advertise for. But then there's also a lot of topics that they don't write down. And so if you have any questions about a particular topic, you can leave it in the comment section. Question about a particular topic, maybe I can help you with that. But to give you one example, if you're trying to advertise if you had a support company and you write Microsoft support, whether it's Microsoft Azure support, whatever you offer your IT company, you do that, your account gets shut down basically. And so there's no written rule on it necessarily, but there's been a lot of people doing scams, tech support scams primarily in India, places like Pakistan, to where they will, you basically are responding to them and then they turn it into on a frequent enough basis that Google basically wants to discriminate against that whole industry because people are getting taken advantage of, and they'll try to run their ads there to get marks and so not to say everyone from India or Pakistan is bad or anybody who does that is bad. That's not the case. It's just Google's taking a hard line against it because essentially they've had more complaints than what it's worth for them to get the advertising money from that space. They're not hard up as you think for money, if you will. The reputation, and you just got to keep in mind, Google's number one priority is that people keep using Google. Even if it does seem like they're a monopoly, people can switch to another search engine, DuckDuckGo or other search engine. May it be hard. If they keep doing that to people, eventually people will switch. And then so they have to, that's always going to be their first priority, is to make sure that the user is not getting too pissed off no matter what it is that you do. That's why they've taken the stance they have on almost everything they've released in the last 5 years for restrictions on ads too. And so with that, and then of course there's there's quite a few other categories that you're going to have an issue. If you run ads in this space, that you're going to get your account shut down. There's also gray area topics. So this is the bigger one. Basically, so you can run in the business opportunity space. There's a lot of good business opportunities and there's a lot of bad business opportunities. And so Google doesn't outright blacklist that one, but what they do is they criticize it a lot more than what they normally would for another type of advertiser. And so you've got to look at your creative and your landing pages and make sure it's not too aggressive. It's not so much what you advertise what's the nature of what it's for, but how you go about doing it. And so, and then, in a lot of spaces like dieting, you can't use before and after pictures on a banner ad, let's say, but in a lot of spaces, they just don't publish it. And so, like in the business opportunity space, if you're saying stuff like, become a millionaire, they just won't allow you to advertise. And so, that may not get your account shut down, but basically, if it has in the past that I've seen, and certainly. What they also don't like is when people reoffend and there's a history of it, and that to them sometimes can seem like a big red flag, and so they'll just shut your whole account over it. And so instead of just like letting you work through each individual issue, so you have to be careful. And so, but the main thing that people don't realize about that, and so when people do know that, they're trying to work around some of these issues. They don't let you do bad credit loans. And on Google anymore, you could do loans, but not bad credit loans. And like one case that I've seen as well is people will work in the stuff into their sales process. So I have no physical proof for this, but I've pretty much been able to tell that if you think you're going to get sneaky, in other words, assuming this was you, I'm not accusing you of anything here, but if you were to run a lead generation campaign for someone needing loans, and then you were able to profile them, and then over the phone you'd sell them a bad credit, high interest loan, Google can shut your account down. And it could just seem like, oh, how do they know? Or they're discriminating against me. Well, really, or whether you knew or did not know that was not allowed, and it may get approved initially, later on in a different review, it could get shut down. And then especially with that, if a human, so basically the way that it works, the same thing with Facebook, the more you advertise, the harder of look you're going to have at your account. Initially, it may just be all AI that's looking at your account, but at higher levels of spend, human reviewers can come in. And then so to the point where they can actually respond to your offer and see what's really going on in the back end, because they know these kind of tricks going on. And so if they think that you're tricking them, your account's toast, basically, there at that point. But not only if they think you're tricking them, if something in the sales process that they don't like and you just made a mistake, a lot of times, they're gonna basically blame you anyway, and they're just gonna assume enough people try to trick them with that, and their intention is their intentions were bad. Not so much it was a mistake, that they're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and they're going to toast your account because it's a high risk to them at that point, essentially. And so this is another thing you have to be aware of, and how the reviews go and at what stages and how they go about doing things. And then the other thing is, a lot of times Google will tell you about this, but if it looks like your site has, going along with this first one, has nefarious means in order to gather information from a client or customer in order to sell that information to another company or do something else with it other than it's intended. And that's a very black box. But like in the loan space, like I said there before, maybe it's not a loan, but they're attracting people for bad credit. And the one thing that tips off about this thing specifically is a site that's not that robust. Somebody that's pulling a scam, they won't have experience in running Google ads, and so what they'll do is they'll run a stripped down site because they're not going to put much money into it. And that tips them off as to say, I wonder if this person's really got a business here or not. So if you're just running a single page site and it's very aggressive, that may not work. And instead of giving you a warning, they may just shut it down right away, depending on what category you're in. So if you are going to advertise, you should always have, in other words, say, I don't know if this business is going to work, so I'm going to throw something up really quick, because you may tip them off and you may not get your account back at that point. Spend a proper amount of time to make it look like a legitimate, real business with at least 5 pages on your site, terms of service, and privacy policy, what you're supposed to have anyway. Make it look like a real business if you're going to advertise it, even no matter if it is a test or whatever. So just so that you don't give, it's all about the impression that the reviewer gets or the system gets. And if you get grouped into a group which statistically, more than half create a major problem for their users. They've got enough money and enough people who want on that platform, especially with Google, that they don't need you anymore, and they'll just, and within that, they also don't want to let you know what it is that they're checking for. And this is also very common on Facebook, that if you have an ad, like in your business, going back to the business opportunity space, an ad that says you can get rich, the ad won't run. It'll run for a little while, and then you up your spend, and then it won't run anymore, and then you're like, what the heck? You try to bid more. Google had a human reviewer at a different stage come in and review that ad, realize that they don't want to run it, and then all of a sudden it doesn't get any impressions anymore. Instead of so much frying your account, they'll just not run the creative anymore, so that they don't tip off to you what it is that is the issue. And Google does the same thing, mainly by roasting the account and then not communicating with you anymore. And so they don't want to give away their security policies, and that's why they also won't talk to you afterwards, because even if they wanted to be polite, the customer service agent may give away too much information, which would then cause people that actually are bad to be able to then further game the system. And so on a related point, many years ago when Google ads, back then what they call AdWords, started out, click fraud, basically people clicking on the ads to make money, there was an issue with it. And then Google had sued the person that they thought was it was a big time click fraud operation. The guy ahead of it, they sued him. And then the guy said, well, basically prove to me that you caught me. And then therefore Google had to tell this person in court how it is that they were able to tell their click fraud mechanism, or click fraud identification system they had in place. And they didn't want to tell him, so they just let the guy win. That's how much they don't want you to know their systems. And so if it sometimes seems crude, I mean, this is all being done for this reason, okay? Or a big part of it. And so anyway, moving on. These first two are related to the niche you're in and how you go about promoting the things in your niche. This other one, billing and identity issues, which is a whole separate category, which has to do with you, not what you're offering. And there are several things that I've seen people do in the past that's got their account totally shut off. One of which is that they use a credit card that was associated with somebody else who had a bad history on Google Ads. Inadvertently, you can get shut off, or if they think you're may not even be the same person or the same card, but associated with somebody who they've had a problem with in the past. That can be an issue. So you have to be careful of that, who you're dealing with, how they're, basically same IP address where a person who got shut down was from. And their system actively searches for anybody they think is trying to go around their ban. So therefore you can be linked or guilty by association. The other thing is problems with your card, the chargebacks, or requesting refunds, or complaining, which brings in my other thing, complaining too much, asking too many questions, making it unprofitable for them due to the amount of times you're calling and having issues. They may just shut you off. Even if you think it's reasonable, their system just indiscriminately analyzes the total time that you're on the phone with them, how many times that if you've had any chargebacks, stuff like that, or ask for a refund. Chargebacks are a big one. Usually if you just get one chargeback with that, then you're done. But basically if you're complaining too much, they just won't deal with you, and to the point where if you try to call, then you won't get through to anybody again, and then all of a sudden your account doesn't work, something like that. So those are a few things. And so anyway, we're going to get into the things that you could do to fix this stuff. The first thing is, so your account's banned when you, again, like I was mentioning at the start of the video, where you try to contact customer service, and you usually have an alert at the top of your screen in your Google Ads account when you log in saying your account's banned. But when you can't get through to anybody, you have to go to this level of action in order to get back on Google Ads. But there always is a way. For these first two things where you're dealing with small mistakes, or basically, except for being in a category that's just straight up not allowed, unless you can find a complementary thing that is allowed, and then there's no rule that you can't eventually sell things that are banned on Google Ads. Like for instance, had a situation where, for a gun seller, they wanted to sell guns and ammo, which is not allowed on Google Ads, but you may sell hunting gear and like the clothing, tree stands, that kind of stuff. And then later on, you have a second website set up that sells all that other stuff, and then you can cross-sell them. One way to kind of get around it. So basically, no matter what it is, the issue is here in the first two categories, or first two things on my list here, you could do a second site. The other thing is there's certain verbiage that will get you kicked off or suspended. We're talking about getting kicked off completely here. So if let's say you had an account that worked and all of a sudden you did something new, you had some new verbiage to the site, like in the guns and ammo situation, you added some guns to the site. What their system does is it scans your whole website. It keeps doing it. It doesn't just do it once. At least for the automated reviews, it keeps occurring. I can't tell you the exact interval, like every week, because people that try to screw with them will do a lot of that stuff, where they'll have a squeaky clean website and then they'll add something later on. And I've even seen some false positives there where you even try to redirect people to a new site quickly. They'll just shut you down, because a lot of people do that. Basically, you know what it is. You could set up a second website and have that be your Google Ads site, and then the other website be your organic site. And if you know that you can basically sell at a higher rate on your organic traffic, if you have some verbiage on there that's not allowed on Google Ads, well, then just run two sites. I've done that several times. But of course, you can edit the site and get around a lot of this stuff. In the business opportunity space, just make your offer and your ads less aggressive. Don't say millionaire. Tone it down. And then along with that, just to get around things a little bit, I hate to say get around, because I'm not advocating tricking Google here. These are legal methods to get around it in terms of what Google declares is legal or not legal with them. But in the business opportunity space, a lot of times you could just run content. So you could educate the buyer, and in that space it's not a real good example, because even if your content says how to become a millionaire, I have seen those ads get turned down. What I'm referring to is it may just be, your item, you promote content first, and then you use you got to be careful, because like I said before, a lot of times these reviewers can go all the way through your funnel. From what I've seen and noticed, I have a strong inclination of that. But you can run content, and you can run a much longer funnel, in other words, that the reviewer is not going to consider as a part of the initial offer. And then you might have, which might be an ebook, which goes to another 5 pieces of content, and then they contact you and they buy something that's not necessarily allowed on Google Ads. So it's another way around it. So you can edit that stuff on the site, and then maybe change up your offer or make your offer less aggressive, not have the trigger words on it. Then if not, just run a second site, strip down the way that you need it for running the ads. Or if you did get turned down, just set up a second website altogether and start advertising it. And so when they shut you down, and it's either of these things, so they will try to follow you around and make sure that you're not able to get back on again. But it doesn't mean anybody, basically I have to be careful what I say here, but if your wife got into business and she wanted to do a website, then, basically, or somebody that wouldn't be, I shouldn't say wife, somebody at a different location, you encourage to get into business, you could just take a mirror copy of the website, not exactly, change mostly what you have there, and then you'll be back online again. Which brings me to my second thing here. If you do have an issue with any of the things I mentioned here about Google having a problem with you specifically, not your content, you can also run a second website. So the main thing is with this here, they have a problem with you and not your site. So In that case, you can take the domain, and if you were to sell it to a different third party that you know, and they went to advertise it on Google, the site as is without any changes could be approved and it could be ready to run. In this situation where you are banned because you ran too aggressive of an offer or whatever you did, you could run another site. You would have to change not everything about the site. I haven't done this, but I've seen people in the past. They'll change like the color scheme of the site and the logo and just some minor stuff. So instead of having to spend 30 grand on a new website, they spent 3 grand mirroring it, and then they were able to get back online with that. They of course had to not do it themselves or whatever, but in terms of getting around the issue they made that burned them or burned their account and burned their possibility of getting back on, or what I would have seen is a site that looked like the old site before the ban, changed just enough on it so that it could be identified as a unique business, and then boom, it's back and able to be advertised again by somebody they told that particular model of doing business would work. And technically that's allowed because Google, basically all they want is a site that will work. And the reason why they don't want you coming back online and advertising it yourself is because they think that you're going to try to do the same things again. So to avoid the issue, but basically if it seems like somebody else is advertising it and the new site that they run doesn't have the things that got you banned in the first place and have a reason to say that this is a different business, then you're good to go. And then of course, like I said down here, just correct the behavior. Set up have your friends set up a separate business, sell them the business, and then they can run the site without impunity, without having the whatever bad behavior linked to their identity. So therefore, Google will then allow them back to run the site, advertising on Google Ads again. Google Ads, YouTube, since they're tied together. A lot of the same stuff can apply to Facebook. That's why I mentioned it a couple times. That's the main, or Taboola, Outbrain, to get back on once you're out. And because Google and Facebook and Taboola, Outbrain, they won't give you any ideas as to what to do, like I said, because they cut you off. And that's why I made this video, was to inform you what you do actually do based upon what I've seen other people do that were there and then they weren't there and then now they're there again. And many people I've talked to that have gotten their accounts banned and come to me and ask me, what they did. And so I developed these main list here of things that usually happen that caused it, based upon all the information they gave me, and then distilled it all down here in this video, so you know basically what not to do, and if you did do it and it is too late,